Well, I think the second child policy really is a correction by the central government to correct the upcoming demographics disaster if the second child policy hasn't already been put in place. Because back in 2015, the central government has commissioned a study, and the survey actually showed that by 2050, 25% of the Chinese population will be over the age of 65, and that shows China will face a serious labor shortage by 2050. So that is the primary reason why the government commissioned the second child policy to relax on its very restrictive reproductive choices for women before.
So, finances and career are still the biggest considerations in having a second child. What has changed in the last year or two, and what is convincing families in China to go for that second child?
Well, I think there are a couple of factors here, Elaine. First of all, China is continuing to grow its economy, although not at the double-digit speed that we have seen, but still, pulling off the 6.9% to 7% GDP is no small feat. And that shows there is a large and booming Chinese middle class coming up. And the fact is, many families realize that one-child policy just doesn't work anymore. As parents get older, senior care, long-term care, housing issues will all have to fall on the shoulders of the one single poor child from the family. And that's just not realistic for many middle-class parents. And with both income earners earning a good wage, and that's why many more women are seriously considering having a second child if they're not already doing that.
So it's becoming a little bit easier financially. Let's go back to China's rising aging population, which you mentioned. Do you think that this is an encouraging sign with these latest numbers, and how far off in the future can we see this major societal shift? You said 2050 was this target year, but can we see it much sooner?
Well, actually, in my personal view is that the second child policy should have been placed a little bit earlier than 2013, because the same survey also finds that by 2050, yes, there will be about 30 million increase in population for the working age pool in China. But even with the 30 million increase, that's not enough to cover the serious labor shortage.
And do you think at some point second children will become more of the norm and even possibly the majority?
Well, I think it would take a lot longer than we initially thought, for the second child to become the norm. I know more women are considering or starting to have the second child, but also let's not forget that employment discrimination is quite rampant in China, and currently there is no good labor enforcement law that will protect women's reproductive rights so that they may seek full redress and compensation if they're fired from their job for their reproductive choices. So I think without a progressive labor law employment update, women, having a second children probably will not be that appetizing to most women.